So today you are going to be designing what you want your artist signature to look like. And I'm going to show you how to create that using something called shrink film or shrink plastic. And when you finish yours today, this is something that you will use for the rest of the semester. Whenever you turn in assignments and photograph them, you'll place your artist signature at either the top or bottom of the page, rather than having to handwrite it each and every time you're turning in work. So the way that shrink film works is you draw your design on your plastic, and then once it's complete, you bake it in the oven. And when it's exposed to that amount of heat, it's going to cause the plastic to shrink down to less than half of its original size and cause the plastic to become much thicker and much more durable. So here you can see in the bottom what the original size looks like after it's been baked in the oven. So I hope you're excited and ready to get started. So now I'm going to show you how to create your very own artist signature. So to find the font that you're going to use, I want you to go to dafont.com, and this is a really great website that has literally thousands of fonts that you could choose from for this project. So when you go to dafont.com, the very first thing that you're going to see is at the top a banner with lots of different categories and different types of fonts. So you can select any one of those categories that you think you might be interested in and scroll down to see lots and lots of different fonts in that particular category. Now, some fonts I do think would be too difficult for what we're doing for this project today, but there are going to be a lot of really good, interesting ones that you can work from. My personal favorite is working with things from the calligraphy category. You can see here that there are 133 pages of different calligraphy fonts to look through. So you've got plenty to choose from, which is really, really fun for this project. At the top of the page where it says preview, right underneath, click in there and you're going to type in your name first and last. I'm just going to select Mrs. Bailey, and you can change the size to large and click submit. And what that's going to do is convert all of those font names to where you're now seeing your name as each particular font. Once you've selected your chosen font, we can't really download this font, even though it is free for personal use, since most of us are probably either using our cell phones to do this or a school-issued Chromebook where you can't download and add files like that to your computer. We're going to do something a little bit different. Since we have this preview here, we are going to take a screenshot of it. Now, if you're doing this on your phone, you probably already know how to take a screenshot and save it into your pictures. But if you're using a Chromebook, you can hit the Control, Shift, and then the multi-screen button at the same time. And that is going to gray out your screen and allow you to select and drag your cursor and select just that portion of the page where your name is. And when you lift up your mouse, you're going to see that it's taken a little miniature screenshot right there. Now, once you have that image, you can either work directly from that screenshot and just save that. It'll be in your downloads when you go to your files, or you can copy it to your clipboard. And if you want, you can open a new Google document and paste that in there. Now, one of the really nice things about this is a great way to sort of save that font. You can increase the size of it if you like. If you have a bunch of extra space, you can also crop this like you would just a regular image. But you can save this document and then you'll be able to work with it either on your cell phone or on your computer screen at home in order to complete the rest of this project. So your next step is going to be to take your shrink film that was included in your supply kit, and on a scrap piece of paper in your sketchbook, you're going to trace the outlined shape of one of those pieces. It should be 2 inches by 8.5 inches and look like a piece of clear plastic sheeting. The next thing you want to do is take your font that you've chosen from dafont.com and pull it up on a computer screen near you. That way you can use it to reference as you're going to recreate this and create a hand-drawn version of your font. So the first thing that I'm doing is creating a very light and very loose sketch trying to figure out where and how each letter should fit into that space without running out of room. So I'm probably going to end up changing this a lot, but having a rough draft can definitely help me with the placement as I start to do more details in the next pass as I go back through the letters. So once I've kind of got a very general, very light sketch, I'm then going to go back through and now start paying attention to the shape and the angles and the types of lines, and really trying to recreate and mimic what I'm seeing from that font that I've chosen. So this takes a little bit of trial and error. I try to use very soft, sketchy lines, and I erase and adjust things a lot. You're never going to get it perfect on the first try, so be willing to sort of erase and adjust and scooch things over and make things bigger or smaller or lean more to the right, whatever it is you need to do to try to get this font to be as accurate to the original as possible. So here you can see I'm just sort of speeding along. This video is going much faster than I am in real life, but I'm just really taking my time and making sure that I'm happy with how this font is turning out. So one piece of advice that I like to always give my students is to draw light until you know it's right. And that's a really good piece of advice, because as an artist, we are always going to make mistakes and do things that need to have adjustments and corrections made to it. Nobody is ever going to get the exact right line drawn the very first time they draw it. So here you can see I'm making a million little tiny small adjustments, and as I'm going, I'm erasing and shifting and manipulating this image, trying over and over again to make each little part look correct compared to that original resource picture. So just make sure that you take your time and that you're really patient with yourself as you're going through this process, because this is the part that you really want to make sure looks good before you move on to the next step. So once you have your drawing finished, you are going to take one piece of your shrink film plastic and choose the side that has a little bit of a rough texture facing up. The rough side is the side that you want to do your drawing on, and you want to place it on your design and get it centered to where everything fits nicely, and you're going to tape it into place. I actually decided to shift mine just a smidge over to the left just to make sure that it was perfectly centered. And so next you're going to choose some sort of a permanent marker. It could be in black or it could be in any color that you happen to have at home and that you like. I'm choosing to use an ultra fine point black Sharpie, and you are going to very carefully trace over your design, and this is going to be the final finished permanent version, so make sure that you take your time here. I found that with my Sharpie I needed to go over each line a couple of times to make sure the ink was dark enough and looked good, but if you don't have a Sharpie or permanent marker at home, I'll also show you a trick where you can use colored pencils later in the video as an alternative. So our next step is going to be to bake our project. So when you're ready to bake your project, you're going to take just a baking pan from your kitchen and a piece of parchment paper, or you can also use a cut up brown paper bag like from a grocery store. That works great too. So here's a piece of parchment paper, and I'm going to cut this into half. That way I can have one piece on the bottom, and I'm also going to put one piece on the top. Now, a great cooking trick to get your parchment paper to lay flat is to lightly spray your pan with cooking spray or rub a little bit of butter on it, and that will let your parchment paper stick to it and stay nice and flat. Then you can place your Shrinky Dink on top and use your second piece of parchment paper to lay it on top of your shrink plastic. I sort of creased it just to help it lay a little bit flatter, but this is going to help prevent the shrink plastic when it curls up as it bakes, prevent it from sticking together and then messing up your project. If you don't have parchment paper, you could also do this with a brown paper bag cut up like you see here, or even tin foil. And then you want to place your baking pan into an oven that's been preheated to 325 degrees. And you want to make sure that you watch your project very closely while it's in the oven, because it's going to bake very quickly in just 2 to 3 minutes, and you're going to see that as it cooks, it is going to curl up as the shrinking process is taking place. And once it lays completely back flat like you see here, that's when you know it is finished, and you can very carefully pull it out of the oven with an oven mitt, just like you see me doing here. And with the parchment paper or brown paper bag on top, I like to give it a quick press with an oven mitt just to make sure everything lays nice and flat. And then I give that just a minute to kind of cool down because it will be very, very hot. So be careful that you don't burn yourself. But there you can see is your finished product straight out of the oven. Now once your piece comes out of the oven, you are technically finished with it, but I want to show you some extra optional steps you can do to your project if you're interested. I decided to paint the edges of my piece with metallic gold nail polish. And once the paint had dried, I also decided to add a clear coat of Mod Podge just to add a protective coating on the top surface. But those are completely optional steps. I just wanted to show you some of the extra things that you can do with this project. Another fun alternative for shrink film is to lightly sand the surface with sandpaper if you have it at home, and then that lets colored pencils stick to the surface of it really, really well. So here you can see I'm creating a Harry Potter themed design, and using colored pencils and that ultra fine point Sharpie, I'm punching a hole in the corner, and then I'm going to use that to create a keychain. The hole will also shrink down, so there you can see what that finished product looks like after it comes out of the oven. Now with your second piece of shrink film, I put a second piece in your supply kit just in case you make a mistake on your artist signature the first time and you need to redo it. But if you don't make a mistake and you have that extra piece, you are welcome to use that to make anything that you would like. You can make keychains, or you can glue magnets on the back to make magnets for your fridge. You can glue earring backs on the back and make a set of earrings, or punch a hole and add jewelry components to make necklaces. You can even make ornaments or bookmarks. You could even put pins on the back and turn it into something that you can pin to your book bag or a jacket. The uses for shrink film is really pretty endless. So I hope that you enjoy working with shrink film today and making your artist signature and anything else fun that you want to make with it as well.